welcome to another video. Today we will be discussing why people still dislike Robert Pattinson. So before we get started, I'd like to give full disclosure that I am a Robert Pat fan. I won't say I'm a crazy fan. I'm not a crazy fan of really anybody, but I do enjoy his acting and I think he's actually pretty good. I know this view isn't held by everybody. There are a lot of people that still have a lot of disdain for him. I have narrowed it down to really two reasons why, but before we go over them, just a little bit of background on Robert himself. Robert Douglas Pattinson was born 13 May 1986 in London, England, which almost makes him 35, and that is kind of anxiety inducing for me. Definitely when I saw what year he was born, it kind of made me start to stare my youth in the face. So Robert really rose to prominence when he accepted and played the role of Edward Cullen in the Twilight saga. That role was for better or for worse, which we will further discuss later. Yeah, that's the role that really thrusted him into the spotlight, even though I think the year before Twilight came out, he actually played Cedric Diggory in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. If you are a fellow Potterhead, you'd know that Cedric was a beloved character, especially when it came to the movies. His death was really sad. Alright guys, so in my opinion, the two reasons why I think people still don't like Robert Pattinson, even though he's been in some pretty good films lately within the last few years, is because one, the Twilight Problem, and two, the actor versus the film problem. So when it comes to the Twilight Problem, I think there's just like a couple different issues that will fall under this umbrella. First, if you were alive to remember when Twilight came out, for me, the films came out when I was in secondary school, so I had to be between like 11 and 15. Don't quote me on my age there, but I remember in secondary school when this came out, it was like a really big deal because when the movie got put into production, the books, even though they were already a bestseller, they kind of started circulating even more, if that makes sense. So I remember I read all books within I think like a week, and I was like, wow, this is such a great story. And then the movie came out. It had to be like pretty quickly after that. So when the movie was being released, there was a lot of fanfare around it because the movie was marketed towards young girls, right? Because usually that's who's reading young adult books, YA books. It's usually young girls, especially when it comes to like books that center around like kind of like how should I say, it's everlasting love, or like kind of love stories that kind of have like some kind of obstacle that's kind of maybe keeping the two main players apart, right? So Twilight was really marketed towards young girls, and I think this was the first issue when it came to Robert's reputation, along with Kristen Stewart's, but we're talking about Robert Pattinson. And I think people who weren't necessarily younger, when they saw, this is how the movie was being marketed, what was the subject matter, they already had a sense of, I'm not gonna like this, so why even give it the time of day, right? And then it didn't help that when the movie came out, it wasn't received well by a lot of people, and again, they were already primed not to like the movie. So when it came out, it was just easier to not like it, not give it a chance, than to actually sit down and watch the movie and maybe enjoy it, right? Me personally, I enjoyed it. I think the movies were a accurate representation of what happened in the book. I'm not saying that it couldn't have been presented better, but as far as it being enjoyable, I did enjoy it, right? So when it comes to Robert, a lot of people already didn't like the movie, so they then didn't like Robert's character Edward. They often thought that he was stiff, or he didn't show a lot of emotion, or that any of the characters, including Robert's character, wasn't very likable. And really that stench has really just followed him around to every other role he's played. In my opinion, Edward did give an accurate representation of Edward and how he was written in the book. If you've never read the book, I can totally understand how you could look at his character and think, I don't think this is how a character in a love story should be portrayed. Yeah, so the Twilight stench didn't really give Robert a chance to really be seen as an actor who actually has the ability to portray different characters. After Twilight, everyone was just like, oh, it's that guy that played Edward. Basically any movie that he was going to be in, nobody really gave him a chance. They were just unwilling to see past it and see that he actually played the characters that he played very well, which leads me into my second point under why people dislike Robert is that they can't separate him from the film. So when I say the actor versus the film, I mean even though a film is bad or good, right? We need to distinguish if the actor actually had a good performance or a bad performance, because in a bad movie you could have great performances and in a good movie you could have terrible performances. Oftentimes us as viewers, we don't always view things as four-dimensional. We just watch one thing and we kind of just, we're just like, all right, we're watching it, and then we're like, we view it as a sum, but we never actually view it as individual parts, right? A really good example of this would be Batman vs Superman that starred Ben Affleck as Batman. Now, I'm a huge DC fan, and DC hasn't had like the best luck lately, and some of that bad luck was in Batman vs Superman. In my opinion, that movie was not great, but I don't think that Ben Affleck was bad. I think he was good even though that movie was terrible. Ben Affleck actually portrayed a really good Batman / Bruce Wayne. No, I'm not saying that Ben Affleck has been great in everything he's been in. There's certainly been some failures, but Ben Affleck has worked on his craft. He was able to give us excellent performances in movies like Argo and Gone Girl, right? So I think when it comes to Robert's career, we have to also give him that kind of benefit of the doubt, or kind of try to see past and kind of move forward in where he is right now in his craft. And I think he's actually starting to peak, starting to actually get up there, right? We've had Twilight, which terrible movie, but I think he played Edward pretty well. We've also had movies like Remember Me. A lot of people didn't like that movie. I think it has like a 29% on Rotten Tomatoes. I enjoyed it. I know the movie was kind of offensive in its material, especially for when the time it was released. I think a lot of people probably would just like, it's still a little bit too soon, right, with its reference to 9/11. So yeah, that movie, it doesn't have the best reviews, but I think Robert actually played a really good talent in that movie. Another movie, Life, it had mixed reviews, but again, Robert played a really good Dennis Stock in that movie, right? And guys, if you need any more evidence that Robert Pattinson is a fantastic actor, look no further than The Lighthouse. It was like a big art house film made by Robert Eggers, starring Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe. I myself am not a fan of art house movies. I think that they get a little too weird for my liking, but I think if you ever really want to see how good of an actor Robert is, The Lighthouse is the perfect movie. That movie was solely driven by him and William Dafoe as character actors, right? I think if everyone was to watch that movie, they'll have a different opinion of him, and they'll start to be able to separate him from the films that he's in, because the films that he's in isn't necessarily the greatest, but I think he always gives his best when it comes to the characters he is representing in film and media. But yeah guys, in conclusion, Robert Pattinson, I think he's a very good actor. I think we all as viewers need to look past the Twilight effect and kind of look past the judgment we had of that era, especially since that was like the first major franchise he was in. I think before that he only did like 2 films, which was Goblet of Fire and then I think like a short film or something. I think, don't quote me on that, but I think we all need to move past that view of him, because even though he's been in some terrible movies and good ones, he has actually played his parts well. And I think once we look past that, we can kind of get rid of that Twilight stink and hopefully give him the benefit of the doubt that he actually deserves, because he's gone on playing a lot of good movies. Tenet, the Batman, which I saw yesterday, he was really great in. He was also in The King. He wasn't the lead, but he was actually pretty good in that movie as well. And I think the only thing he's actually guilty of is choosing terrible projects to be a part of. So if we want to dislike him for something, maybe his decision making isn't the best. But as far as his craft and his acting, I think we are now at that point where we should say he's a great actor and kind of just, you know, leave the Twilight stink behind. But alright guys, that's it for me. I hope this video isn't too long. I'm really aiming for like an 8-minute video here. I guess we'll see how I did. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, and if you'd like to see more from me, hit subscribe, and I will hopefully see you guys next week. Bye.